Hi there, Marcelo. My name's Andrew, and I work at IELTSpodcast.com here with Ben and the others. What we try to do with these single essay corrections is provide you with as much information as possible as to how to improve your writing with regard to the mark scheme and achieving a high level in IELTS writing. Of course, if you'd like to significantly improve your writing, it takes repeated corrections. This helps you to spot your own mistakes and stop making them in future. But for now, let's have a read through and see what we can do for you. So your introductory sentence is absolutely fine. The only thing I would add here, I would say it is prejudicial to the target countries. I find that the appearance of international marketing, globalization, while I do believe that it is inevitable, I also see that it removes the choices of local producers as to whether they even compete or not. It forces local producers and local markets to compete internationally, which may not have ever been something they intended to do. So I would say it's to the target countries, specifically referring to the local producers who are being affected by the arrival of global brands. But I agree with you, this new trend is a natural consequence of globalization and brings many benefits to the various nations. It's a greater set of options. I would say a wider range of options. A greater set is technically correct, but it sort of strays away from what would normally be used in this phrase. Same here, actually. I mean, I like the word prejudicial, so I'm not going to correct this, but there's a tendency to, I think, try to use fancy language, which is not something you would see in normal academic writing. It's certainly good to be as precise as possible, but detrimental, for instance, is more likely to be used than this. But I like that, so it can be left there. But here, we really should say a wider range of options, or a greater number. If you want to say a greater number of options, that would be incredibly precise and good. To choose when one wants to buy a product. I would just say a wider range of products to choose from, and then you don't need the rest of it. Having a high information density is good in academic writing. Communicating a lot of information with few words. The whole point of academic writing is that the writer put in a lot of effort so that the reader need not put in much at all. So with that in mind, for this introductory sentence here, I would say the internationalization of economies has drastically changed business. That would be sufficient. See, this is too much expansion. The companies, especially the big ones, the multinational corporations, you could just start with companies, particularly larger ones, are now operating beyond national borders. That would have been fine. In this context, marketing activities have had to follow, or have had to keep pace with, or have had to track these changes, and resultantly have been forced to internationalize themselves. I don't know whether this is necessary. I would, with this paragraph, I think it just needs to become a little clearer. So with our body paragraphs, we usually have around 4 sentences, because one paragraph expresses one idea. So first we introduce the topic of the idea, the general area, then we expand into the area with our point, our thoughts, or our opinion. Then we support that statement with a real-world example or a description of our reasoning. we essentially then, at this point, once we've made a statement, we must demonstrate our credibility. We must show that our opinion is trustworthy. So we support it with a statement. We show our reasoning. And then once we've done that, we can use thus, therefore, or hence at the end to summarize the whole thing, bring it all together. So I would rewrite this paragraph to introduce generally, to expand into, to justify, and then to explain. Let's have a look at your counter-argument. However, some criticize marketing's internationalization, or just globalization would have been fine, arguing that it is invasive and affects the sovereignty of the countries concerned, or the nations concerned. It would undermine local business and have negative effects on the national economy. I would just use as here. Arguing that it is invasive and affects the sovereignty of the countries, as it would undermine local businesses and negatively affect the national economy. Nevertheless, this argument, I would just say, at this point, nevertheless, this argument does not provide a workable solution, because everything else is a judgment. None of this speaks of fact. It is just your judgments. So what we must do is leave judgment to the reader. We state the facts. Nevertheless, this argument does not provide a workable solution. This we leave up to them. We don't need to tell them everything that we're thinking. On the other hand, some measures can be undertaken in order to mitigate, I would say. Diminish bad outcomes is to mitigate. So mitigate the outcome. For instance, it is important to pass laws that act against monopoly. To have power over a market, to own most of the market, is a monopoly. And we do have monopoly laws. So, for instance, it is important to enforce monopoly laws, equalizing both international and domestic companies. Therefore, international marketing should be controlled, but not... Vanished is not a great word to use here. I would say international marketing should be controlled, but to ban it completely would be harmful. Explain our thoughts. International marketing, or the internationalization of marketing, is I would say, an expected characteristic of a globalized world. An expected characteristic of a globalized world, and it is impossible to eliminate. Although it may have some negative features, international marketing is crucial for continued international cooperation, I would say. Continued international cooperation, and must be regulated to ensure it brings benefits to the people concerned. So, your writing is actually quite complicated. You do have a great vocabulary. I assume that you are a postgraduate student or professionally engaged in some way. If you would like to continue receiving corrections in this manner, what I would try to do is simplify your writing slightly, but make it more precise. You will come across, the way you're trying to come across with your writing, you will come across better by learning brevity, learning to say a lot with a few words. It's far more stylish and makes for great academic writing. But if you would like to continue receiving these sorts of corrections, feel free to subscribe to the course in the email that I've sent you. It will be me correcting your work. But I do hope to be seeing more of your work coming through soon. Until then, Marcelo, have a lovely day. Bye-bye now.